to soar. That is what we're talking about today. Soaring. As in getting above the trees, getting above the weeds, getting above the noise of the day-to-day. And that's really, getting your head up, getting above what has been going on this week or this month, and taking a few minutes, well, not a few minutes, taking really a few hours at least. I like to take half a day if I can do it, once a month or so. And a Sunday afternoon is good for that, for me. I often do it here with my son Gideon, because it's good for him as well. There's no digital noise going on. There's no movies, no social media, there's no iPads, there's no racket. I mute or put my phone in airplane mode because I do not want to be disturbed. I don't want to be distracted. I don't want to lose my focus. And the point of soaring is to see some things. The point of getting above the noise and minutia, day to day, is to see what you can't see down in the weeds. When you get up above the weeds, you see some things differently. And while you're there, you want to make some observations. So SOAR is an acronym, S.O.A.R. And the S, obviously, could be seeing, but it's really, the key word there is sequester. You want to shut off some things and escape from some things and prevent some things from happening. Sequester is to kind of like close yourself in, or to wall yourself off, or to perhaps create solitude, or to prevent interruption. That's some of the kind of context for the word sequester. So that's the first key, is to sequester yourself. And I do it by sitting down here, nice little campfire. Now, if it's a beautiful fall day, that makes it a lot easier. But I'll tell you, I do have to be careful to not bring distractions or create distractions from inside of myself. So that's the S, sequester. In this position of being sequestered, you can start to make some observations. You can start to see things because you're in a different perspective. You're in a different position. And you begin to see things differently in that position. So that's the O, observations, or observe. Now, as you're observing, of course, you see some things. You want to grab a hold of those things that you're seeing. You want to go from just a simple thought or a simple observation to capturing that thought or observation in an actionable, or in a concrete way, or take it from just thinking and observing to getting your head around that observation. And that's the A in SOAR. That's apprehend or acquire. You want to take that thought, acquire it or apprehend it, and kind of like capture it and make it yours. And that means to to kind of work it, like to kind of digest it, chew it, and kind of work through it a little bit, and ponder that particular thought. So apprehend and catch it, make it yours. And then the R is record. Record it. Capture it in such a way after you get your hands around this thought or your head around this thought or this observation. You want to write it down. You want to capture that in such a way that it is indelible at some level, where it's available for future work. You have taken your observations and what you've seen, and you've brought it from a thinking or seeing position to now it's turned into data, if you will. But I don't mean data so much as in ones and zeros, or data as in put it in software or something. There's nothing wrong with that, but you want to capture this in such a way that you can return to it, that you can come back to that idea and do something else with it. So for starters, I would suggest that when you're soaring, that you don't use digital equipment, software and iPads and so forth, because they're distracting, first of all. But, first of all, that's the reason. So I use a piece of paper, journal. A journal's great, or a tablet. Typically, when I am soaring, I have two kind of tools with me as far as capturing things. One is the tablet and pen. The second is a journal, a good pen. In my journal, I'll capture things that I think are maybe more deeper or worth keeping for a long period of time. I will take my journals, I'll work them for a while and write all kinds of things in them. And I'll just kind of have one at a time. And then when I fill it up, I just park it on the shelf. But I will capture things like ideas about a tool, ideas about an essay I'm writing, any kind of creative, what I would call a seed idea. But if I'm just kind of trying to workshop something or brainstorm something, or maybe take something and sketch it out, I'll typically do that on just a throwaway tablet. If I come up with something good on that throwaway tablet, I will transfer it right into my journal. I'll kind of like rewrite it. You can take a picture of those things too. I often do that with Trello. I'll use my iPad and take a photo of my worksheet or journal and put it in Trello, where I can now kind of make a more actionable project. But there's nothing wrong with taking something on a sheet of paper that you've sketched out and written down and doing it again in the journal, or doing it again on another sheet. There's actually a lot of value in kind of reworking what you just figured out, and you're going to get a better iteration. And this is some of the work involved in being creative. It's not all epiphanies and all kind of like pixie dust and all that bullcrap. It's much more subtle. It's much more rich, perhaps, but the richness is hard to find. It is. You've got to put some effort into sequestering yourself. It is not a random inspiration. That is, I find that to be fairly rare. This kind of soaring is more of a rhythm. It's more of a discipline, and you have to work on it. And that includes working your thoughts and working on a piece of paper. working your idea, working out your sketch, working out your root idea. And look, there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of people and a lot of reasons, a lot of types of people, I should say, or a lot of endeavors that people are on, and reasons to be creative. It not just if you're some sort of make some living being quote unquote creative. If you're making, I don't know, music or images or writing stuff or producing some sort of media. Creativity is seeing what other people don't see. It's seeing through the smoke or the clouds or the fog. Where other people see fog, you see through it. Creativity is, I think of it as, again, seeing what other people don't see. So when some people see a blank wall, you see a window. Yeah, so creativity in parenting, creativity in how you manage your day or your life, your finances, your rhythms and stuff about your life. There's creativity is maybe seeing the ruts that you're in, that are seeing the ruts that other people are in. We often don't see our own stuff, quote unquote. And creativity could be, for instance, what we're doing right now, where you just getting put in a position where you just can't help but making some observations about things. So, seeing what other people don't see. Now, when you see that stuff, when you have those observations, a lot of times they happen the hard way. Observations, I'm going to say epiphanies, those points where you realize something. I like to say epiphanies are costly. They the treasure and time and repetition or reps that you have to go through before you figure something out are costly. Oftentimes, an epiphany comes after a failure, and you learn. And the failure causes you to learn, and that failure is expensive. What failure is costly. But the wise find epiphanies for half price. The smarter you are, the cheaper you find them. But the pain and the cost of waking yourself up are around being dogmatic about taking time to think and see. It's not easy for me to come out here and do this. I have to cash in some chips. I have to put myself in a situation where my family and the people around me understand not to interfere. I have to say no to some things. Even today, to come do this today, I had to tell some people no. There are people I love that need some help today, or that have could use a little bit of my time. Often the grandkids would love to spend some time with me and maybe have me do a little babysitting, that sort of thing. My kids would love for me to watch their kids today, and sometimes I have to say no to that. Now, I try to spend a lot of quality time with my grandkids. If I can pull it off, I try to not be stingy about that, but not today. Not during the time where the weather patterns can come together, and I can spot this time where I'm going to be able to get out into the woods by myself or with Gideon and do this kind of exercise. So investing in thinking time is costly, but it's far cheaper. It's a far cheaper epiphany than learning the hard way, learning from your mistakes. And all that comes back to SOAR, to take some time to just be intentional about seeing some stuff. Now, a couple little hacks here when it comes to soaring. First of all, park it in your calendar. Look ahead and try to find a soft spot in your calendar. Find, a zone where it's a little less intense. Now, you're going to have to be maybe a little brutal sometimes, depending on what sort of calendar you have. Often folks that are getting things done, quote unquote, or have important roles, there are a lot of pressures and voices pulling at their time. So first thing you got to accomplish here, or to get good at, is get good at saying no. Get good at protecting a period of time and looking out into your calendar and parking it. And I would suggest a half a day, 4 hours, from lunchtime to dinner time, or breakfast to lunch, or, something like that, early afternoon to late in the evening, or mid-evening. You need to go somewhere that everybody knows, oh, he's going to do that thing. You have to set some expectations. You have to kind of preemptively fend off some of the distractions that'll come your way. So that is letting the people around you know that, hey, I'm about to go do that thing, and this is not the time to ask for things or need me. Also, when you do this sort of work, you're going to want to take a few tools with you. Again, you're talking about paper and pencil and journal, but have a few things that are worthy of focusing on written down. Have a few themes, I would think, or centers, or kind of content centers, or perhaps things you've got to figure out, or things you ought to get up above and observe. It could be a particular strategy you're in the middle of. It could be something about your budget. It could be a particular, but a particular endeavor that you're in the middle of. You need to have a theme to think about and capture that. I like to write that in the form of a question often, or in the form of a project right in the middle of a sheet of paper. So that then I just look at that question or project and I start thinking about it. And I give myself permission to wander, maybe mentally around, and not so much daydream, because this is intentional. This isn't just drowsy thinking. But you do want to give yourself permission to give yourself space to kind of wander around that topic. But use the topic as an anchor. You put the topic in the middle of a sheet of paper, so you keep looking at it, you keep coming back to it. But wander around it, all right? But you're tethered. Maybe that's the best word there. You're tethered to the subject. It's okay to have 2 or 3 of those subjects. Also, I find it helps to get up, stand up, and walk around a little bit and get a little active. Take a walk, change positions. So here, while I'm doing this, I will do some thinking, and then I'll kind of stand up and walk around the fire a little bit and gather some wood and that sort of thing. But that movement is, there's some things that happen biologically in your brain, in your physical brain, and between the different, I don't know what to call the different sides of your body, bilateral, I think. But as you're moving right hand, left hand, right leg, left leg, there's something that happens in your thinking process that is healthy, that's stimulating. So you want to get a little movement going on. And then finally, after you have, again, kind of captured your thoughts and paper it, well, let me back up. Bring a few things along that are very, I'm going to use a word, pleasurable, or that have meaning to you, that are trivial but meaningful. For instance, I love sitting around a campfire. Many folks would not like that. I love being outside and being maybe rugged, or maybe sitting on the ground with my feet by the fire. I don't mind if there's bugs crawling around. I don't mind if it's a little uncomfortable weather-wise, or if it's starting to rain or snow, as long as I have the right stuff, the right gear, the right clothes, that sort of thing. I heard I don't know who said this, but I'll have to look it up. But somebody said there's no such thing as bad weather, there's just bad clothes. And I'm a proponent of that. So, but find the space where you're comfortable. Find the space where you are happiest. It may be at the park, it may be at the coffee shop, it may be sitting in your vehicle in a parking lot. I do that pretty regularly, once or twice a week. I will spend an hour or so sitting in my truck, doing some journaling, doing some thinking through a particular problem or a particular process. Perhaps I'm doing some writing. But I have found that as I'm driving into my shop in the morning, as I'm listening to music or maybe listening to a good book, I will have some sort of idea or some sort of clarity. And I have about a half-hour drive, and usually, often, it's not uncommon. If I'm not in a hurry, it's not uncommon that I will sit in my truck for 20, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, and capture that thought and work that thought out, that idea. And sometimes it's around a client, sometimes it's around something I'm working on creatively. So those are some hacks, okay? So find your sweet spot where you do your best thinking, and then start investing time, relationships, cash in some chips if you need to. Set yourself up with your tooling so that you can get to that spot and do your best thinking. So there you go, a little bit of thinking tools. We've got some thinking juice going on. The coffee is, to me, that is a non-negotiable. When I am doing my thinking, I need to have some good coffee. So there's some good hacks for you. Take that, put it in your backpack. Good luck with that. Soaring. I'm Mark Whitmore, head coach, Lodestone, True North.